welcome you to this edition of the Black and Gold Banneret Night Shift show. Night Shift. Eric Lopez alongside Kyle Nash, Nick Porcelli. Jeff is out. Explain this to me, Kyle. Where is Jeff exactly? He's in a big-time event. He's like Mr. Big-Time Orlando guy now. He's like at the Citrus 50-yard line event there for the bowl or something.
I mean, listen, if you Richie or Ritzy or you're a guy that has a voice that's lent to the process, apparently you get invited to fancy things like that. I am not big night. I'm not big. I'm not
you
big.
Cover every Orlando bowl game. How are you not at this event?
I did. You preach to the wrong choir, homie.
Okay. All right, we'll manage. Coming up, we'll talk UCF West Virginia homecoming. Is this a losers leave town game for the two teams? We'll explain that. Nick had a chance to talk to Johnny Dawkins. We're closer to the college basketball season. Kyle's kind of curious himself. He's Mr. Basketball. Was at the Magic opener against the Rockets. So he says, I got some basketball questions for you, gentlemen. So we're going to find out what that is.
I'm not Mr. Basketball anymore, man. Listen, Nick's got the reins on the men's side.
That's correct. And we're going to see what we know there. And then Bryson Turner will join us later. He's currently at volleyball as we record this. He'll join us later as volleyball just picked up a very important win against TCU. And oh, by the way, we got the #1 ranked team men's soccer team in the country of all the land. Hello. We're football school.
Football.
UCF football, baby.
See.
Nick Nick was there at the UCF press conference for men's soccer. We'll get into all that coming up. But first, all right, let's get into football. UCF obviously lost to Oklahoma 31-29. We did a night shift post-game show. That's on our YouTube page there. So we went about an hour on that game. I just want to ask you both this. We've had some days to think about it. You wrote about the game on Night Class. Any final thoughts on the Oklahoma game that maybe we either we didn't cover on Saturday or you've kind of changed your mind or something that's come up since that we need to address from that loss? Because obviously there's been a lot of chatter about the 2-point play. One where the Daytona newspaper's headline was Gus Malzahn's an idiot. It's pretty strong.
Classy, guys. Thanks.
I didn't know. Yeah. Wow. That's how journalism there. Just give me, Kyle, starting with you. Any thoughts moving forward? Because I've had a couple of changes since in a moment. I want you to start.
Well, and I'll go with this: the two prevailing schools of thought that have come up, and you may, if you've listened to the Student of the Game this week, which still aired due to the Magic pre-recording during the Magic game in question that Eric Lopez mentioned, but apparently UCF gets enough respect nationally that Oklahoma darn near loses to them, but then doesn't get punished and is still right exactly where they were in the top 10. I find that incredibly interesting. And the other thing, and again, I mean no disrespect to this particular personality, but the most prominent voice is Mike Bianchi in defending the play call for the trick play in the end zone. And the comment made, particularly by Darren Hedenshaw, is that if X throws the ball, as he said in the Sunday availability, that's a touchdown. And therefore it was the extension of the logic then, as was by the Orlando Sentinel's Mike Bianchi on his morning show, was by extension, since that opening was there, it was obviously a great play call. My thing is, if you have a young man who's going to have that much trepidation in throwing the ball, you didn't make a good play call, because that's a personnel issue if somebody does not have the poise or resolve to make the play. Now, maybe they believed he would, maybe they had faith in the kid, and I have no issue with anybody having faith in Xavier Townsend, but the people who were like, you took the ball out of Plumlee's hands, that's the point they're making, is you had it in the hands of a younger player who's not even technically a top man at his own position, with the ball in his hands on that last play. And this is why you're getting criticism. Now, people out there who don't know ball are putting stuff out there like Gus Malzahn's an idiot. The only idiot I see is somebody who's not accounting for the fact that the past 3 top recruiting classes, which at this stage of the game is more important than that single play against Oklahoma. I'm sorry, fans. The facts of the case are those, and they should not be in dispute. But yeah, listen, when it comes to UCF fans, gentlemen, I always expect a cool, collected, mature response. That's the joke. Anyways, so those are my 2 main points from the game.
Nick, you were very fired up Saturday night. I'm assuming you've calmed down since?
Honestly, I've forgotten about I've tried to forget about the game, and then you brought it up again.
Well, I'm sorry. We have to do a show. That's kind of our job. We can't.
I know. I'm always going to question how healthy was JRP into that game, because I will forever say I don't think he was fully healthy, even though he looked good, because in my mind, if he's 100% healthy, that trick play doesn't happen. They're just calling something where he tries to run it in. We talked about that right after the game, and I still think that now. If you guys disagree, jump in, but that's what I think would happen.
Oh, may I agree with you and augment your argument by saying they used a similar play to score the first damn touchdown of the game that they had?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Carry on.
Yeah, thank you. For people saying Gus Malzahn's an idiot, A, be professional if you're a journalist, and B,
the Daytona paper. Now, in fairness, if you read the Daytona paper, and this is kind of the weird thing with journalism, a lot of times the writer does not pick the headline. It's somebody else, an editor.
That's fair.
So in fairness to the writer, I don't think the writer, there was a miscommunication there, something. It was just, to me, it's weird. I just don't feel comfortable somebody insulting somebody like that in a headline. You could do it unless it's like blatant. I thought that was bizarre, but
nonetheless. Well, and nowadays we're seeing personalities like the Rodney Harrisons just being allowed to on air and national television just call players trash, or I think it was Dante Whitner. Oh, that guy's terrible. Or Shady McCoy on an ESPN show that said, what was it? Dak Prescott is ass or something like that. Just great.
There's a reason why they're on FS1. Oh, never mind. Sorry.
Well, actually, sir. The names I mentioned were NBC and ESPN, with all due respect.
Well, there's a lot of network.
I say all that to say, since they get away with it, it trickles down. We don't have to like it, but that's the prevailing culture now, and it gets eyeballs. So, that's why it happens. And let me pick up on the writer.
Let me pick up on what Nick said about Plumlee, because I will give you credit for this, Kyle, because you wrote about this night class. I said on Saturday, man, he played a heck of a game. You said, no, he didn't play that great. There was third down conversions were not good. There were some plays left out there. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of gonna adjust here, backtrack a little bit, and give you credit on night class because you graded out the performances. I
love the dude's heart, though. I'm with you on that.
Gutsy game, gutsy performance, performance. Everybody should earn that respect. He didn't play great. He played well, okay. But again, you wonder how hampered he was with all the various, health stuff going on.
What we should be talking about is that final drive and how great that was and how amazing he was in overtime should UCF had won, right? That could have been the story. I'm like, listen, up to that point, it was only so. And then he dug down deep in his soul, the motivational force that John Rice Plumlee is, and X happened. Now, granted, he wasn't given that opportunity. But I only say
that's my issue with that's my issue with the trick play. Now, again, to Nick's point, if Plum is 100% healthy, I'm convinced that 2-point play, Plumlee's involved.
I'm not. Gentlemen, remember, 0 for 4 in 2-point conversions, all 4 attempts, some sort of a trick play, right?
Does he go is it too much? Is it too much, Kyle? That's the question. Does the staff go too much for the trick play and sometimes just run the, because there's some people that have said that. Now, you mentioned Bianchi's defended it. Others will say no. I'm not a big problem. I don't have a big problem with the trick plays. My only issue there was you're asking Xavier Townsend, who's not a quarterback, to throw a ball from the left side. If you're going to run that play, wouldn't you be better off running it from the right side? Make it easier.
They didn't have enough field for that either.
Correct. To me, and again, you're in a short yardage situation. Now, in fairness to UCF, this is not just a UCF thing. Kyle knows this because I message him all the time because I rant about this in football, in both the collegiate and the professional level, how these teams now become too cute from the short yardage. And what do? Instead of running the ball, they're going to go, oh, let's go with a fade or let's go with this. Like, we get cute a lot of times in the red zone in a short yardage goal line situation, I should mean. But that's not what lost them the game. And I've said this on Saturday. The one thing I still maintain, we're focusing on the 2-point play. My thing is, if they're more aggressive in the third quarter and try to go up 2 scores, maybe you win that game.
Possibly. And then there's a couple of the mental errors too, like that cheap touchdown Oklahoma got in the first half off of the broken coverage. Man, talk about a dude that wants that back bad now, That's kind of the main thing. The 2 touchdowns they gave up that were complete just brain farts by the DBs. And I don't want to mention the guy's name because the defensive core had an excellent game. That's just, unfortunately, 2 plays the blown coverage there, and then trying to jam the guy down the field, and that's how he gets behind you to score on the outside. That's a tough, that I think to me is bigger than the 2-point conversion. But I'll complete my talk on the 2-point conversion to answer your original question this way. Is it getting too cute? Because you've done a trick play the previous 4 attempts on 2-point conversions, people are watching this bleeding film. Brent Venables is watching this film, right? Brent Venables and company. They know that you're going to do some tricky-ish on the 2-point conversion should it get to that point. They practice for extra close games just like you did. They live in this house, right? So at this point, they know that you're doing it. You want to really trick somebody? Run some conventional-ish. That'll fool the bleep out of them.
All right, well, we'll see. That's in the past. So the Knights lose 31-29. Now, here's my question to both of you. Do you believe that performance can turn around and carry over to West Virginia, or do you think this is a new team, a different style? They don't connect. They do not. You can't connect one performance to the next performance. Where do you stand on that?
Nick, I'll let you take this one first.
It can really go both ways, right? Like, it's either did they play like that because it's just a classic, you're facing your toughest opponents, you got to throw everything in the kitchen sink at them kind of performance, or is it one that they're going to build off of and keep playing? Like, to me, it's just simply, can they keep the fire and the heart that they had? Because if they do, and I hope that they do, because frankly, they've been through a lot and they need to overcome it. And frankly, they had some terrible losses going into that Oklahoma game, and yet they had the heart to keep fighting. So I hope that can carry over. That's just really what it's going to be. Can you keep up the passion that you had in your first game? And I am sorry about that. But yeah.
Can't interrupt it. Come on now, Nick. Come on, it's a podcast here.
I didn't hear it until you said, if that helps. Well, no, and I think he's absolutely right with that take. I know that if I were in a Gus Malzahn presser, he would say that it doesn't matter and that it's a different team. He would play the card, trying to not leave bulletin board material per se, for the Mountaineers. But I think this is what Bryson was trying to point out on KnightShift Live, is that it's not a moral victory so much as it is an opportunity for coaches and players to embrace that feeling they had in that game and know what it is and know what you're capable of. You had a team that was allegedly the 6th in the nation with an alleged Heisman finalist on the other side who's now hawking more socks because he didn't drop in the rankings at all because, the writers are morons, okay? But what I will tell you is, like, I was fortunate enough that when I played semi-pro, we didn't lose but one game. So there's that. But what I can say is it's easier to coach off of a loss like that because, hey, you saw what you were capable of. The only thing that made it not happen was us. Do it again. Just shore it up, especially against a weaker team. Now, whether or not the defense did that good because Jeff Lebby was busy proving he shouldn't have been the head coach at UCF by not attacking the outside offensively more than he did, or excuse me, attacking UCF offensively more with outside runs than he did, because that's been UCF's defense weak point, right? Or do they have that shored up? Is Addison Williams figuring out aggression and giving up short plays keeps your offense in the game?
Well, let me ask you this. One thing we didn't address Saturday, Gus talked about it on his Monday presser. Addison Williams moving from the press box down onto the field.
Right.
Talk about that, Kyle. The difference there. You buying what they're saying there? That Addison fitting better on being on the field there instead of in the press box?
I think that's a style thing. And I don't know where he would have been previously, but I can only assume that last year he wasn't in the press box. So maybe going back home made him more comfortable to get a feel for it. Maybe getting him more directly talking to players. Coaches have different styles of coaching. So some dudes may do better detached than others. Maybe Addison Williams is a dude that still needs his hands in the pot. Hey, we've seen Gus Malzahn as a head coach still being heavily involved in the calling of plays. Hate the frustration of having to sit at a table on the sideline, let alone going up to the press box, right? So that it seems like a little thing, but that communication concept could be huge, especially when you have players that are still, students, student age, to get that communication through. I'm 100% with that.
All right. So the Knights will now take on West Virginia homecoming. West Virginia. This is a battle of two teams coming with losing streaks. UCF's lost 4 in a row. West Virginia has lost 2 in a row themselves. Remember, they lost a couple weeks ago to Houston on a Hail Mary play. Last week, they got blown out in the fourth quarter by Oklahoma State. At home, there's some restless Mountaineer fans wanting their head coach out. They're 4-3. Their best wins are over Pittsburgh and TCU, which are not great. What's interesting that jumps out at me, though, this is a completely different style than Oklahoma. Oklahoma was not a good running team. They're a pass-first team. West Virginia
they ran it all over Texas, but I digress.
Right. That was weird, which might speak more of Texas. Maybe. I don't know. Who knows? But West Virginia is a run-first team. Their quarterback is a multi-dimensional guy in running the football, and Garrett Green. Interestingly, West Virginia, among the best in the Big 12 in time of possession, 34 minutes a game. UCF among the bottom at 26 minutes a game. We say that because that could be a key in this football game.
To your point, Elo, the only game where UCF's defense wasn't on the field for 30 minutes of game time, the only Big 12 game was against Oklahoma. Every other game, they've been on the field 30 or more minutes.
Yeah, so my thoughts, give me your thoughts here on this game. It's a different matchup. I think this week we're really going to know if this run defense has been resolved. We like what we saw, and they mentioned how Addison being on the field, he could communicate with the players, get them fired up more. They definitely did some different schemes, which we talked about it Saturday. But I think this is the weekend we find out, okay, was Oklahoma from a defensive performance an aberration, more of a matchup benefit because they weren't a great running team, or did they find some true answers? I think this is a good test for this because West Virginia, that's their strength, is they can run the football.
And I think it's a bit of both, Elo. But for one, they're not going to have to worry about the same prowess of passing from West Virginia. Listen, as much as I question Dylan Gabriel as a Power 5 passer and all this other stuff and the numbers he's putting up and all of that stuff, I can tell you that, by question, I mean, I don't think he should win a Heisman is what I'm saying. Right. But he's still a better passer and has a better passing system around him than the Mountaineers quarterback will. He might barely keep his family fed in comparison. See what I did there? But the punchline's this. I feel like because that lower passing prowess exists, the guys up front can get more aggressive. The defensive backfield could get more aggressive, and the safety play is important. Just as an example from the Oklahoma game, Nikai Martinez came in, stopped the screen pass that eventually turned over into a punt for Oklahoma, right? And that one play, that one stop where they were able to contain something on the outside with the help of a DB made the difference in that drive. In the Kansas game, they just ripping off more yards after that screen, right? So I think there's a lot of that there where it's a little bit of both, actually. And listen, I love how you asked the question about the outside run. We've been seeing it. So have other teams. But here's the other thing that I think UCF has going for them, and Bryson made this point Saturday. The schedule from here on out, compared to having to play K-State, Kansas, and Oklahoma, granted there's a bye week in there, but those 3 teams in a row is a tough draw for an SEC team, let alone, UCF or anybody in the Big 12, right? So I say all that to say the team prowess is lower, but it means they have less of an opportunity to take advantages of weaknesses, while Addison Williams has also made adjustments and done things different to make them look better in Oklahoma. It's a combination that really works in the defense's favor. For my money, Elo, the concern is offensively and moving the sticks more. That's got to happen.
What do you see from the West Virginia defensively from that standpoint? How would you attack West Virginia defensively from that standpoint? Is it just as simple as just staying with the run? Obviously, we'd assume Plumlee was at the Magic game with you. Did you two hang out, Kyle? Were you in both? We said early.
I didn't run into him. I was too busy.
He had better seats than you. Yeah, he was.
He had much better seats than me. Yeah, I'd have to go down at least 2 levels to meet up with him. I did run into him at a Guardians game once doing XFL stuff, but that's a whole other question. No, but listen, to answer your question, I still go with the run, but I utilize Listen, the thing I love about Gus is he's not afraid to come out throwing if they overplay the run, which they will do. I feel like any team is going to overplay the run. All right, let John Rice Plumlee fool you. Get some passes in there. Get his confidence up. Get the defense's confidence down, and then let that offensive line, that sneaky good offensive line, open some holes. Get RJ Harvey, who's the team's best offensive player statistics-wise, handle business. You got a good combination there.
Nick, are your fellow student body going to show up for a noon kick?
It's homecoming, and NBA legend Shaquille O'Neal's DJing before the game. So, yes.
Oh, I know Kyle. I know where Kyle's going to swing by before going to the press box. He's going to see Shaq there, aren't you?
DJ Diesel.
Don't be so sure. Hey, I just hope they make the stage big enough for the guy. That's all I'll say.
I just hope somebody gets him. I mean, he's doing, we record this. I'm watching him in Atlanta doing TNT Studios. I think when he agreed to this, I don't think he was thinking of a noon kick and like getting there at 10 in the morning. I mean, whatever time he's got to get there. Let's hopefully he's there. I am curious about the environment. It's a noon game. This is the first noon game, first of many. And for years to come, get used to it as being one of the few, us in West Virginia, the only East Coast time zones teams in the Big 12.
Hey, listen, I'm looking forward to going to a Halloween party afterward for the first time in a long time, Mamma Jammas, all right?
Look at this guy. He's fired up. But I am curious to see, and this is why I said this is like a losers leave town type of game. Not necessarily because the team's seasons are on the line. But I think the fan bases for both sides. I was reading a lot of the West Virginia fans. Neil Brown's in the hot seat. They were optimistic a few weeks ago. Now the way they've lost the last two games, if they were to lose to UCF, now they're free falling at 4-4. People are going to be calling for his head, and I think a lot of West Virginia fans might tune out and say, all right, college basketball season's right around the corner. Let's just focus on that. But I think UCF fans, too, I'm very curious on the crowd for Saturday and noon game. How many students actually will wake up to go to there? How many people are really? This is a game, by the way, that's going to go up against Florida, Georgia, that will take some of the casual fans. Every year. I've noticed when UCF has a home game on the same Saturday as Florida, Georgia, the attendance is not as good because there's casual people that are going to go to Jacksonville for that game.
Oh, the cocktail party's a tradition there, Eric Lopez. It's
a huge event, right? People want to go just to go. So, and I always say that's one of the challenges UCF's had, and I think people had this fool's gold. Well, we're in the Big 12 now. Everybody's going to sell out every game. No, the competition in this state to go to football is still very good. So I'm very curious to see what the atmosphere is. But I'm saying, I think the most part, a lot of the fans are optimistic with the OU performance. But if you follow it up with a bad performance and a loss against West Virginia, Kyle, I think a lot of people are going to check out for the rest of the year, whether you agree with it or not. At least I think a good chunk of the people following the program, not the diehards. Diehards are there through thick and thin, but I'm talking the people there. They're kind of like, all right, maybe I'm in, maybe I'm not, or maybe I'm going to follow the Magic now, or maybe I'm going to go to the beach at Cocoa. This is the big game, I think, for all of that.
Listen, Elo, I know there are times where we clash. Like you're wanting to try to tell me that Texas and Oklahoma was the game of the week when we had Washington, Oregon. You're out of your mind. But I agree with you on this one. Matter of fact, over and above the fact you leave out, if they blow this game, then my prediction of six wins is problematic at best. I say that because anybody else in the fan base that joined me and was hoping for a bowl game, if this happens the way you're talking about and they don't do well against the Mountaineers, that I think some of the fans are in my pulse of, hey, listen, 6 wins. Bowl game is still a great performance on your first time out. All the many charts that Jeff has put out on the various black and gold banneret social medias, bing, about the transition. Thank you, Nick, of what's going on with the with transitioning into the Power 5 and how big a deal that is. The one thing I think UCF does have going for them, it being homecoming, that slightly minimizes it, Eric, and I don't want you to think I'm going full homer here at all, okay? But slightly minimizes it is it's less students they're dependent on and more alumni, it being homecoming. That matters. So with that in mind, I think that part, if you're going to schedule a homecoming game against the cocktail party, you would put homecoming on it. They have that going.
For sure. And then, like I said, Florida, Georgia, you're right. I think alumni and maybe the students will show up. Well, I don't think
they don't need them as much as what I'm saying, Elo.
Well, the other thing, too, and Nick knows this, too. I know this is going to happen, and everybody's going to flip out. Somebody's going to post a photo on social media like at 11:45 of the stands being empty. Certain section. I guarantee you, happens every time for a noon game. And I would remind people, like it or not, Nick, you can verify this. And Nick, how you can do. There's going to be a percentage of the fan base, students and other fans, that won't get to the stadium until after kickoff because they're finishing up tailgating, and sometimes you can't speed up the beverages or the food. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And that's just the way it is. I know some people are going to be bothered by that, but that's just reality.
And that's not UCF local. Can we be clear about that? Ish for 30 seconds.
Everyone has that problem. That's what drives me nuts. Like, everyone is acting like when students left the last home game, that's a UCF only problem. No, go to some of the bigger schools. They have that same problem.
Well, UCF is one of the bigger schools now. The other bigger schools, Nick, have that problem. That's
other bigger schools.
I think I think that's fair. I think college football in a lot of ways has this problem as a whole. I mean, Florida has had trouble selling out. They're like, man, maybe we don't have too big of a stadium because you don't have to go to every game. You can follow a game on the phone. There are people, I am sure what got lost in the whole thing about people leaving early, you can still leave now and follow the game on the radio, follow the game on the phone.
Technology.
Yeah, it's called technology. People can watch the game on TV with except, it's FS1. But not other than that, it's usually good production and broadcast.
You did maybe.
So it's become a television product, hasn't it, Kyle? Like the NFL. In a lot of ways, it's more of a TV product than a spectator sport. Don't get me wrong, people are still going out to the games, but that's one of the reasons why I don't get as caught up anymore about attendance like I used to. It used to be like, oh, I can't believe people are coming to that. There's a lot of competition now to do.
You beat me to it. Because some of the casuals that are closer to Orlando will be like, oh, why the hell do I want to drive all the way up to Everbank, that sorry old stadium that's allegedly going to get smashed when Shad Khan finally gets around to handling that business? I'll just stay here and check out the cocktail party remotely. That works both ways too, I think. Granted, in your defense, more the other way, but there will be elements of that too, I think.
All right. Finish this line, both of you. UCF wins this game if.
Nick, you first.
They keep the same heart they had last game, and they limit mistakes.
I like the heart point. That's a good point, Nick. Limit mistakes. That's a little John Madden, but I'll let it slide.
Actually, wait, hold on. Let me add one more. And take advantage of scoring opportunities.
Okay, red zone. That's a good point.
Yeah, I should have added that. That was a big key to the loss last week.
There you go. You get it in there. All right. There you go. For me, I'm going to be a lot more rudimentary. The sticks. Move the ball on third down. Listen, I can say this because the kingdom's a thing, right? The UCF Knights win if John Rice Plumlee earns his money and helps convert third down. Granted, he does a lot to give.
In fairness, he's got to get some help. I mean, in other areas where there'll be guys catching balls, blocking. I mean, it's not just like him singing.
Listen, as much as people wanted to blame the O-line last week, granted, you always have to drag Jeff Sharon off the edge when UCF games, period. But he had the O-line on fire just like Bryson did on Saturday. And I had to point out the offensive line, for most part, did their job. When you say he needs help, I don't know from whom you mean. Maybe you need a receiver to make a more of a routine catch. I don't feel like there was a ton of drops. Certainly not.
Play calling.
Oh. Play calling. Okay. All right. That's a good point. Maybe special teams.
You can't do anything if you just do a handoff on a third and long at that point.
Okay.
You said it there. 100% special teams. Can we maybe just be a little bit better on punting this week?
Coverage as well as well as kicking. Well played, Nick.
All right, I'm going to say, all right, if I'm going to go with this liner now. UCF loses this game because blank.
I mean, there's a ton of ways they can lose this game.
All right, I'll go first since you guys are thinking. UCF loses this game because they lost the battle in the running game. West Virginia gashed them and outgained UCF. This is a lot. Give me the stat. Who ran the ball more in this game? Who had more success running the football? And I tell you who won the game.
Nick?
I guess what I'll just say is kind of building off that. UCF loses this game if the defense reverts to how it was before the Oklahoma game.
UCF loses if John Rice Plumlee's health is any bit worse than it was last week.
Ooh, yeah, that's a good one. That's very true.
Noon kickoff. Yes, Fox Sports 1. And yes, the unofficial UCF broadcast team of Eric Collins and Devin Gardner will call the game. Not from here, somewhere else.
I'm glad they're not here, because as I walk past them, I'll be trying to too busy do the imaginary mute button at them as I walk by.
It's the 5th time they've been assigned this UCF game. And who knows, they might get assigned next week because UCF Cincinnati's also on Fox Sports 1.
Indeed.
At 3:30. And I'm going to go on a limb and say the Houston game on the last weekend of the season is probably going to be an FS1 game as well, if not worse. So probably. maybe Oklahoma State, because quietly, the mullet, Mike Gundy, is turning things around there. But maybe that'll get a decent TV
I think that's more about his schedule getting a little weaker.
Or that. Well, you said it, not me. So don't expect the big numbers like we did for Oklahoma, where they had over 2 million viewers watching UCF Oklahoma on that one, unfortunately. All right, so we'll get you. Obviously, we'll do a night shift show right afterwards. Kyle will pop in from the stadium, not with a Halloween costume though. Not yet, right? That's for later.
I mean, I'll be dressed up as a basketball reporter, which I'm clearly not anymore, right, Nick?
An NBA reporter. Okay.
We will do a night shift. I will be home base. It'll be a quick one there. Now, you mentioned basketball. Let's turn our attention to
what a transition.
Thank you.
It's almost like we've been doing this for a while, right,
That's
Eric?
Correct. UCF college basketball gets underway for UCF November 6th, folks. That's, believe it or not, it's a week from this Monday. It is coming. UCF had a media availability on Monday. Since we did this last episode, I think UCF was officially, of course, picked last in the 12 poll. No surprise there. Nick Porcello, you were at the presser for UCF. What did Johnny Dawkins have to say? I know he was asked about being picked last, because that was not the case when we were at media.
Hey, who asked that question, Nick?
Yeah.
Some UCF student. I don't know who he is.
That was you. Yeah. You're asking the hard questions there. What was the react? What did Johnny tell you?
He was pretty calm about it. I almost felt like he kind of expected. He's just like, we're one of the newer teams, so obviously the odds are going to be stacked against us. But both he and the players that I've spoke to are kind of embracing it. They're like, all right, we're the underdogs. Let's maybe see if we can shock some people. Because if you remember, and I think I don't just think they're saying that. I think they believe that, because if you remember, Eric, when we were there at Media Day, how many of the guys we talked to said, I legit think we could win a lot this year. So I think, they were all kind of like calm. They needed some coffee that day. Let's just say that. It was a low energy press conference, but yeah.
Well, it's low key, It's not.
It was low key. I get it, but I think they're both upset, but they're bulletin board material. They're going to embrace the underdog status.
This is one of these moments where you'll wish you had CJ Kelly, Nick. I would have loved to see his reaction to it.
I've seen some of his press conferences, so yeah, I agree with that. That would have been awesome.
Look, both the men and the women are picked last. I can tell you, because I read a lot of college basketball stuff and listen to a lot of podcasts. A lot of people pretty much not giving UCF much love there in the Big 12. I mean, a lot of people are like, and the reason is there's no tradition. Like I've said this, some fans don't accept this, but UCF really is not like people took for granted the success we've been having.
Yes.
All things considered. And boy, we're going to find out what real basketball programs look like here in the Big 12 coming up. Now, Kyle Nash has covered UCF basketball. Will still contribute to it. But, he's Mr. Showtime now. He's covering Mr. Magic 35th year anniversary. He's a Magic NBA guy. He's just like Taylor Hendricks, going one and done, boom, pop, boom.
Hey, I had 2 seasons, thank you.
You stayed a second year. Very kind of you.
At least nothing else, I'm Tyler Hendricks, okay?
You're Tyler. Oh, let's hope Tyler stays longer. But you've got a couple questions. So here, I'm going to give you the platform, Kyle.
Yeah.
To Nick, even myself, I'll chip in on answers, but I want Nick to answer some of these, and I'll answer as well. What are the couple of 3 questions you're curious about, Kyle, about the men and the women of this upcoming season? You want to this point, based on what we know?
Yeah. So first, whenever I get into it with Dawkins and company, I'll start with the guys. With Dawkins and company, they are constantly using transfers to fill in the front court. And to Johnny Dawkins' credit, I mean, even though all the fans want to blame everything on him and say you should be fired and all that stuff, to Johnny Dawkins' credit, he's recruited the front court well to fill in those gaps. And really, the problems only start happening, especially last year. CJ Walker gets injured. Injuries seem to have piled up the past 2 years. Now they got an excellent get for this year's class with in the front court and just getting CJ Walker and all about that. How do you guys feel about the front court and the impact they can make to kind of support Darius Johnson and company in the backcourt?
I'll let you start on this one, Elo.
Well, let's start with CJ Walker, who's healthy.
Right.
Nick and I talked to him. You can see it on the YouTube page right now, Black Hill Banneret. He's the guy. To me, he's the guy. Right, Nick? I mean, his health,
100%.
We didn't have him. We only had him for 4 games. And I'm convinced of this, Kyle and Nick. If CJ Walker's healthy last year, this is an NCAA tournament team last year. It really is. Really? I really do believe with him and Taylor in that front court together, that's the way, man, I would have loved. I think that would have been an awesome combo.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I think CJ would have helped Taylor. For that Michael Durr didn't. Michael Durr was very good. But what happened? Michael Durr got hurt. Okay? And now you're like, and people forget that. So you're basically down to your third string bigs there. And I think that's what cost them. It hurt them during that middle slump to some extent there. If they would have had Walker the whole year, I think it's a different team. I think they win a couple extra games to win the tournament. So I think he's the key. And that's a big year for CJ. We'll get into this more when we do a basketball preview show, I'm sure, leading up to the openers. This is a big year for him. This was a top recruit. He's had some injuries throughout his career. He wants to play at the next level. For him to make a living at the next level, he has to have a really healthy, strong year this year. So I'm intrigued what CJ Walker does. I think he's the key and the glue to this front court for them to be successful. He's the key factor, Nick. You agree with that?
I 100% agree with that. Like, the way I see it is, do you guys remember when JRP went down and we were always, like, for Timmy McClain, we're like, look, he's good, but it's just, he's not like the guy. He's not the guy everyone looks to. He's not the leader like John Rice Plumlee is. It's the exact same way for CJ. He is the leader. Like, I've talked through talking with all the players and with Coach Dawkins, it's very clear. He is the head guy in that locker room. There's other guys who have stepped up as leaders, but he is, the one that all the people are looking to. So obviously he's probably the most talented especially on offense, but he's also like the guy who's, everyone's going to look to, especially the younger guys. So his health is going to play the big key. If it's like last year, I'm extremely worried. If he's on the court, then I'm feeling good, not just because he's a great player who adds a lot to this team, but with him, I think this team's going to gel a lot easier.
Yeah, well, and this isn't taking away from Darius. CJ and DJ were both the leaders on the team and both missed significant time. Fortunately, CJ Kelly was able to fill in and have an excellent year as the transfer, knocking his thing out, and would often grab a lot of rebounds too. As an oversized guard, his description of himself. Yeah, you're also referring to all the things that were missing in the middle. That's how Jameer Nelson came back to town with Temple and just dunked all over everything in the world. I would ask this though, as well, like, and just real quick, Michael Durr missing. If you have CJ Walker and just a body, so no one can just stand in there and dominate, I think that's a big thing too. Nick, when you were, well, I should say either of you guys, when you were around and talking to people in general, be it at Media Day, be it at the Monday availability or any of that, my question would be is were there any sort of hints at it, any sort of identity changes for the team, or is the preach still positionless and tough defense?
I didn't get a sense that they're going to change too much. At the end of the day, they're still going to want to play defense first. I think offensively there might be some different things they might do. I think there's Johnny even referred to as Nick. If you help me out here, I think he said, there's some different like duplicate, position players type of deals there.
Yeah, that's 100% what he said. But like you, I got the same thing. Like, they want to be a really strong defensive team. And I feel like through some of the transfers, they're really empathizing that. They really want to make it tough for you to drive to the basket and score. So in a way, their identity hasn't changed. But to answer what is the identity that I'm starting to get, it's that they want to be a team that's strong on defense.
And I've always found it interesting that whether it's Coach Abe Katie Abrahamson Henderson, who's now in Georgia with the rest of the cupboard that was the women's basketball team at that time. Satia Messer came in. People were worried about that being different. That team, for all its shortcomings, was still nasty on defense and was intimidating to the point that Poindexter, who was a All Conference player in the first round of the conference tournament in the American, ended up getting teed out of the game in the first half for all the toughness that they had on defense, and they got in their head. Listen, say what you will about that. But when it comes to Coach Messer and the women's team, I heard something with her, I think it was from Media Day, that they're looking to be that tough team from last year. My question, guys, what's the sense you get of them doing that without Old Faithful herself, Destiny Thomas, on the floor?
Well, you are 100% right. Like, I was just going to say, just like the men's, the women also want to be tough on defense. Like, the word that I heard constantly was gritty. Mm-hmm. They want to be a gritty team. So, yeah, when I go to those games, what I'm expecting to see is it's going to be really physical. I don't quite yet have a sense of who's going to step up to replace who you're referring to, but I think that's going to be decided during the game as the season starts. That makes sense. I don't know if we can tell who that's going to be yet, but I think they want to test it and see who's going to step up.
Yeah, I think a big part of it is some of the younger players from last year trying to get more involved. Sierra Gog maybe running the point, getting fewer turnovers. I mean, that killed them a lot at times is the younger players. And I don't mean to call out just Sierra. This was a backcourt problem.
Yeah.
Having a lot of turnovers. And then, I know Maya Burns is going to be a big part. By the way, watch Nay Hutton closely. She's going to be some of that power that you're looking for. I don't care what color her hair is. She is there to kick your butt. Elo, let me ask you anything you may read from the women's team that you think might represent something cool in the identity that you're looking forward to.
I think here's the thing. They're now a year removed from all the departures, right? I know Destiny left. I get that, to go to Georgia. But what I'm saying is, remember last year, it's like, whoa, this is year one. I think Satia Messer obviously got a new staff. These players now know what the system is, the returners, right? And they've added some pieces there. So we'll see what the identity is. That was my thing last year, Kyle. We talked a lot. What is the identity of this team? I don't know. We knew that last year. And I think this team, we should know early in the non-conference what the identity is. To Nick's point, I think the schedule is set up a certain way to find that before the Big 12 schedule. Big 12 kicks in. I think Maya Burns is going to have a really good year.
Me too.
Talking to her, I think she's worked on a whole all-around game. But I think the thing is, all the stuff that happened a couple of years ago with other partners, know that like mixture there. I think everybody now knows, okay, this is how things work now. This is how, because that always happens in a first year when a coach takes over. You're still learning, what does this coach want from me? What does this coach do? And the coaches are learning. Now, this is year two, so there's a little bit of a comfort, not a comfort level, but you kind of know what to expect. We'll see.
Also, significantly healthier at this time this year than last year as well.
Knock on wood, it's not over yet.
I appreciate that. That's why I said it. That's why I said. What was that, Nick?
Let's get to opening week first before we.
No, you're right. Thank you, Nick.
That's why I worded it that way at this time.
Remember last year, opening night, I'll never forget. We're both there. We're all there. Nick wasn't yet, but we're like, the women's game had just finished. The men's comes out, and we're like, wait, who? Darius is in street clothes? What? Yeah. And then Tyus Freeman is in what? And then they literally started no UCF returners in the lineup. We didn't know about injuries, and it was just and they lost to an NCAA tournament team, by the way, which we all said would be the case in double overtime with a bunch of new guys. So let's get to Nick's point. I agree. Let's get to opening night and before we declare health.
I just said healthier at this time. I didn't say they were ready to go. Let me be clear. I don't want to.
Nothing when you're not playing games. That's all I'm going to say.
Dang, you're one of those. Okay.
All right. So we're going to do a big in-depth. We're going to go more in depth on the basketball coming up here. Again, opening night for both the women and the men are November 6th. Opener doubleheader, which has become a tradition. The women will open against Bethune. The men will open against FIU. Around 8:30 tip probably when you consider all the time stuff there. So basketball season here, gentlemen. We will get to cover more of this in the coming weeks, coming next week or two before you know it. But for now, we're going to let Kyle go We're going to bring Bryson in, but we're going to let Kyle know. Kyle, tell the audience what you can expect this weekend here for the UCF West Virginia game.
Hey, listen, like I said, this one I think is going to be a battle that UCF can win, not to give too much away. I'm not sure if we're going to get the round table this week or not. We'll see what happens. But I will say that this is a game I had UCF pick winning going into the season. You can see more about my thoughts on that game upcoming this weekend after the game from my night class article. And if all goes well, maybe I'll be able to check into the KnightShift podcast after the game from the Amway Center and wax poetic for a little bit before the Magic tip-off there in the arena. So, gentlemen, an honor, joy, and privilege to be aboard. Nick, great talking some hoop with you, doing your thing coming in. Sure. Looking forward to Bryson coming in, talking about a top-ranked football team.
That's right, baby.
Until next time, gentlemen, class dismissed.
All right, that is Kyle Nash joining us here on the show, ladies and gentlemen. And that now we will bring in Mr. Bryson Turner, who, let's see, he just finished, he's coming to volleyball versus UCF victory over TCU. We'll get his thoughts on that momentarily. But, folks, sorry, Bryson, we got to open with the #1 ranked team in the country. Hello.
Woo! First time in UCF history that has ever happened. Got a chance. I actually saw athletic director Terry Mohajra over the volleyball game. Congratulate him on that real quick. But I can't believe we can finally say that we are #1. Hey!
There you go. All right, Nick, you were at the press conference that I can remember, the first ever major UCF men's soccer press conference in history, where there was a ton of media there.
They were inside.
You know how I can, you know what? You know how I can confirm that was the first ever major conference without having to check it? Because Coach Scott walks in and says, "Wow, a podium and a backdrop and everything." He was shocked by how it was.
Oh boy. That's a good line.
I mean, and the irony of it all is I had to miss it because of graduate school classes.
Well, yeah, you're gonna do
Nick, thank you so much for going to that. You are the man for going and representing the banneret there.
All right, let's get Nick's thoughts here. You were there, Nick. Give me what was the thought? What was the kind of the mood there in that presser? What was some of the highlights of that presser?
Well, I will say they just came out of practice, so they were still kind of focused. Here's one thing I'll say. There is a feeling of happiness, but I think the person who's holding on to it the most is the head coach because you can see this if you watch the full press conference at the Black and Gold Banneret YouTube panel. I can't do Kyle's thing. I'm not going to do the bang. Nope. Thank you, Bryson. But when I was talking with the players, what they were like was like, we're happy, but we're sending texts around basically saying we don't want to focus on this too much. We have to focus on things ahead because this is nice, but we don't want to try to hold on to this. There are things that are more important. And while they wouldn't directly say it, they all hinted at we definitely think that we can win it all this year. Though I think they're going to start small by winning their conference. But when I was talking with Coach, he was the one who was very honest. He's like, listen, I almost I don't want to I almost don't want to enjoy it because I'm I want to keep staying hungry, but it's hard for me because as he would later say, you know what, when you win, you have to enjoy it because winning, especially at this level, is hard. So I think based on, the energy in the room, he was the happiest about it, but ultimately, and as he would later say, I'm glad that my players feel cool, we have this, but no one's going to care about this years later. All that matters is winning it all. So that's it. They're still hungry.
Yeah, they definitely are. They're #1. I wrote a big in-depth column on Black and Gold Banneret about how we got here. Bryson, I want to get you in on this because we did an in-depth work over the summer ranking coaches at UCF history. And we both ranked Scott Calabrese. I know one of the things we wrestled with is where to rank guys like Scott Calabrese, who I believe we ranked him 16 at the end. We decided on 16 all-time in the top 30 head coaches of all time. We may have to revisit that, Bryson, because he's got him #1, and what a job he's done getting him there. But now there's going to be a challenge because one of the things I highlighted in the column was the improved defense of UCF. UCF has only ranked in the top 50 in goals allowed against, as I wrote in the column, once in the Scott Calabrese era. That was 2018, his second year there. Last year, UCF finished 127th. They struggled defensively. Offensively, by the way, they're currently 14th in the country in goals scored. They've been in the top 15 offensively. This could be the fourth time in the Calabrese era. One of the reasons why is they have great depth defensively in the backline. But the other is the improved play of Juan V. Munoz, who right now is maybe the front runner for goalkeeper of the year in the Sun Belt. However, Bryson, a big situation played out in South Carolina where he got red carded, and he is out, as we understand, against Georgia State due to that red card. So now that UCF defense is going to get challenged with a backup goalkeeper.
Yes. Now, credit where credit is due. Luciano Natoli, the freshman kicker, the goalkeeper that came in to replace Wanby in the final 50 minutes. By the way, he had made his UCF debut the game before in a 4-minute appearance against Coastal Carolina. So how about that for his first double-digit minute action right there? But I think he handled it fairly well. He was able to get on the ball and really stop a South Carolina team that I think was really reinvigorated right at the end there because of the goalie change and getting that goal on him to make it a 1-goal game. So very well done from Luciano to do that. But again, he's a freshman, just like with Wanvi last year. He's newer to this, and so it's going to be very important that the defense does not give Georgia State those opportunities to really test Luciano at the net. Now, Georgia State is also a team that I circled coming this late in the season because after, the gauntlet at the start with Marshall, West Virginia, and Kentucky, the rest of the conference is like, okay, you want to make sure you win the rest of these because last year the Knights lost to FAU and UAB, teams that they really shouldn't have lost to. These games these Sun Belt games that we're going into to the end of the regular season are kind of like that. But Georgia State and James Madison are definitely an improvement, I would say, from the teams like South Carolina and Coastal Carolina that we've seen before. Georgia State especially I am worried about because it is on their turf. And we saw what happened with Old Dominion. So I think it'll be very interesting. I think Georgia State was at 55 in the RPI or something in that range.
Something like that, yeah.
Nick,
let's get Nick in here. Nick, you were there at the presser. Nick,
yes.
Was there conversations about the red card on Juan V. Munoz at the presser?
I was just about to jump in and say that. So honestly, it was brought up very briefly. Part of that might have been because most of the people wanted to ask about the M1 ranking, but also because, to be fair, the answer for, how do you feel about it wasn't that long. To put it simply, the team feels that, yes, it sucks not having him because he is a talented player, but their thoughts are we still have a ton of talented people, including on defense, and they feel very confident in that their defensive support will make it easy for their goalkeeper. So obviously, they see it as a concern, but they're not too concerned about it. They think it's not going to be a big deal for them. They're confident.
And that's what they got to do. And tell us a little bit more, Bryson. You mentioned the goalkeeper who made his debut, ironically, in the Coastal Carolina game, as you mentioned, in mop-up duty. He's going to get a full week's worth. He knows he's going to play. It's a little different than coming in cold, with 15 minutes to go like he did against South Carolina to preserve a win and win 3-2. But this is where we've talked about that back line, the Jonas Fritzsch's, the Anderson Rosas, the Zane Bubbs. These are the guys that have to have big matches in this Georgia State match, Bryson, to help, make it easier for the goalkeeper.
Yes, this isn't to say that Luciano Toli is no scrub, by the way. This Miami Beach native, he actually played for Inter Miami CF2, Inter Miami's MLS Next Pro team before he committed to UCF. So let's not like mince words and say that this isn't some scrub that they're putting in there. No, he's a talented guy in his own right, but just like with Wanvi last year, he's a freshman. He's a freshman. He hasn't gotten a lot of goal time in game this season, so that'll be very interesting to watch. The defense is going to have to really make it easy on him. The good news is if there is any defense that I trust to keep them off goal, it's these guys, because this is the healthiest I think I've seen this team at this point in the season than I've ever seen them. Last year they were riddled with injuries in the backline with Zane Bubb and Rafael Crivello both out. Gino Vivi was off and on again. So this, I would say, is definitely the most healthiest I've ever seen this team to this point, and I think that's one of the big reasons why they're ranked as high, because I think they had this talent all along. I think they could have even done this last year if they're all last year. I think.
Well, I like some of the freshmen though.
But
some of the freshmen that have contributed, Saku Heiskanen, etc. I think have helped them get to that over the hump as well. I agree. The defense being healthier and deeper has been a big part, but I think some of the new faces, they got 14 freshmen too, by the way, on this roster. This is not going away. They're not going away. But let me ask you both this. What does it mean to you to have a UCF team now ranked number 1 in any sport? Now it's men's soccer. They're the first. I wrote on my column that I think this is like a glass breaking moment. If you're a UCF team in other sports now, you saw that men's soccer can get to number 1. You can get to number 1, right? Like, I feel like somebody has to break through first before everybody else, right? Like, I feel we could – I'm not saying we're going to see a flooding of teams being ranked number 1, but I do think this will have an impact on other UCF teams moving forward. And, you know, we'll see what the rest of the season brings for this team. But I think this team's already got a legacy because of that. Am I reaching here, Nick? What's your thoughts?
I mean, 100%. It's awesome. And to say you're here for the first, yeah. It's amazing the thing to say. But I think how this season ends is really going to determine this team's legacy, because when you said, yes, I think people are going to forever remember them. And it's definitely, you know, the glass shatter, breaking through the glass ceiling moment, because someone had to be the first. It's them. And I think we're going to see more teams start to become number 1 in the future. I 100% agree. But I don't think that just being number 1 for a while is what these guys want to be known of, because what is one thing that we constantly make fun of the USF football team for claiming? For a few weeks, we were ranked number 2 in the nation. Who really cares? They want to be ranked number 1 at the end of the year by winning that championship. So I think the longer they have the number 1 ranking, and if they can earn some silverware, that's really what's going to determine their legacy. But as for right now, it's just, you know what, you get to say that one of the teams you cheer for you can claim that they're the best in the country. That's awesome. What more can you say?
Well, I mean, one thing that we're forgetting in all of this, and I don't blame people for this kind of going under the rug a little bit, because, you know, number 1 in the country is a big deal, but they're leading the Sun Belt now. They control their own destiny for a Sun Belt regular season title. So if you win a conference that includes Marshall, who, despite 2 losses, is one of the top teams in the country still. I believe they're 6 right now, so they're still top 10. And then you have West Virginia, who's like number 4. I think they're top 5 in the country. So if you get a regular season Sun Belt championship with those teams in there, then that's a big way for you guys to be remembered, even if you win the College Cup. But I will agree, a deep run in the College Cup would certainly be a major milestone for this team going forward. And it's honestly, I think, really fitting that the first UCF team to get number 1 was men's soccer, because UCF has such a big history in the sport of soccer. So to see one of the soccer teams become the first number 1, and no one can ever take that away from them, no other UCF team can say we were the first to do it, I think that's really fitting. And it makes me proud to be UCF. I can't lie, because that's something that in so many years of UCF athletics being a thing, this has never happened. And now that glass ceiling is finally broken, and we can say UCF is number 1. I gotta keep saying it. UCF is number 1. He was number 1.
Hopefully they can maintain it. They got Georgia State. You mentioned they're on top of the Sun Belt. They have a 1-point lead on Marshall and West Virginia, who's number 2 in the polls. In fact, West Virginia is number 1 in the top drawer soccer poll. So there's a bit of a split with UCF and West Virginia, which is fascinating. So they got to win out to win the regular season title, which means they would be the 1 seed and basically play every conference tournament game at home. That would be significant. In fact, if UCF were to win out, there's a good chance that this Georgia State game will be the last time UCF has to get on a flight until potentially if they were to make the College Cup, which is held in Louisville, Kentucky. Because they were, and people are focusing on the number one ranking in the poll, but more significant, last Friday, the committee had their midseason rankings, and they had UCF number 2, which tells you the committee respects what UCF has done. So I think that's a big factor to keep in mind because the top 4 seeds in the NCAA tournament, the 48-team field, will host throughout the NCAA tournament. So this team has a lot to play for, but I am nervous without Munoz how they play against Georgia State because a draw or a loss could cost them the regular season title. So that will be Friday night, UCF at Georgia State. They will wrap up the regular season on Halloween night at home against James Madison. Spooky times, to say the least.
Yeah, fun story.
Yeah.
Coach was saying that he was considering dressing up. Apparently, he was looking for a Jedi robe online, but eventually he just decided, I'm going to dress up like a soccer coach. But he was considering it.
Oh, very good. Bryson, I teased the ranking thing. We had Calabrese 16, I believe. I think you were looking it up to verify that we had him 16.
Yes, it was 16. So if you're asking if you think we should put him higher, I think we need to wait and see what he does in the playoffs. If he wins the College Cup.
Yeah, give me the breakdowns here. If he gets to the College Cup, he's got to be top 5 all time.
Well, he's just ahead of Kirk Spearaw. Johnny Dawkins is right ahead of him at 15. Tiffany Roberts-Sahadak is at 14. Carol Smith-Gilbert at 13. Katie Abrahamson-Henderson at 12. And then we get to the legacy coaches like Jay Bergman and Jay Bergman at number 11. So I think there's been a lot of really great coaches in UCF history, but I would say
none of them led UCF to a number 1 ranking. None of them.
You are right. You are right. So I think Calabrese will certainly be making a very huge case for himself in those rankings next time we do that to vault himself into a top 10 spot. I think honestly, if he gets to the College Cup, I think he's gonna have to be up there for sure. Yeah, a regular season Sun Belt tournament though. Sun Belt tournament is going to be I think a very interesting thing because if we say we win out, we get the regular season title, but if we went to win the Sun Belt tournament, you got to go through either or Marshall or West Virginia, maybe both again.
Well, I think that's why.
If you win that, you got to think UCF might be in the position to be a number 1 seed if they do that, right?
I think if you force me to pick, I think the number 1 overall seed will come from the ACC champion, whoever that is, whether it be Wake Forest, Notre Dame, maybe even Clemson. Even though UCF beat them head to head, the committee doesn't look at head to head as big a deal as we do. By the way, that's why winning the Sun Belt's important. Because odds are the team that doesn't win the Sun Belt is probably going to have to deal with the other top 5 team. You know what I mean? Like, if UCF's a 2 seed, they're probably going to have to deal with West Virginia or Marshall in the semifinal and then deal with the other one in the final. Whereas if you're the 1 seed, you might avoid both of them, only have to play one of them in the final. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. They got to take care of business against Georgia State on Friday night.
Right.
We could go on for hours on men's soccer, but we do have other sports.
I'm sure we will later on. Don't worry.
But Bryson is literally outside the venue right now doing the show. This is a first
in his car.
Yeah, in his car. But hey, Brian Murphy, if he's listening, would be proud because Murph's done many a podcast back in the day from his car after football games, after sporting events, you name it. He's done it all.
Hey, I could have missed this.
We'll get to volleyball in a moment. Women's soccer, real quick. Lost to BYU Monday night. They're the 6th seed. They will play TCU in the 3 seed. They will have media availability Friday. We're going to have a big Big 12 tournament preview and kind of the season tournament outlook on UCF on Black and Gold Banner Red. Bryson's working on that. You're going to be at that media availability on Friday, so I don't want to say too much on women's soccer, but here's what we will say, Bryson, Turner, and Nick. To me, UCF has to beat TCU that 9 o'clock Monday night opening. They're going to get a bye. They're the 6th seed. TCU is the 3. That's a bubble game for both. I think UCF has to beat TCU and advance to the semis, and it wouldn't be a bad thing if they beat BYU or get a draw. And remember, soccer, you don't necessarily, if you end in a tie, just because you lose in penalty kicks, officially that's looked at as a draw. So that's what I mean by that. UCF is one of the first teams out, according to Chris Henderson, who covers women's soccer as well as anybody. Can they do it, Bryson? That's the question. Can they do it? They're literally limping in with injuries. They fell behind early at BYU, lost 3-2. Now they got to play TCU. They didn't play during the regular season. But this is it. To me, the night season comes down to Monday night.
I think there's a blessing and a curse to go against a team you didn't play in the regular season because for one, neither of you guys have a comparison for what to go against. On the other hand, you don't know what you're going against. You have the other games to really worry about here. But TCU, I think honestly, UCF getting TCU to start this is honestly, I think one of the better scenarios, if I'm being honest with you, because of this. If UCF beat BYU, they would have been at the number 4 or number 5 seed that would have kicked off on October 30th at 11 a.m. Central Time, which is noon our time. Now they face TCU at 8 p.m. Central Time or 9 p.m. Eastern Time. So I would argue that the preparation going into this game is going to be much better at this stage if UCF had won that game and had to be a 4 or a 5 seed. So that's the one thing. The other is that now UCF, the committee can look head to head at TCU and UCF and see who is worth a potential final at-large spot in the NCAA tournament. However, Eric Lopez, there is another team that could potentially bungle all of this up for UCF, and it's the Texas Longhorns. They are one of the last teams out as well that Chris Henderson has. And of course, Texas beat UCF 3-1, and they have Big 12 Forward of the Year Trinity Byers and Midfielder of the Year Lexi Misimo on their side as well. The all Big 12 soccer team came out today. But by the way, the UCF Diana Martin was on the second team, and then defender Jessica McCullen was on the all freshman team. Texas, however, has definitely some very talented players, and so I think Texas's performance on the other half of the Big 12 bracket is going to be very key. Let's just say this: they're facing West Virginia in their quarterfinal match. UCF fans need to be West Virginia Mountaineer fans for that matchup right there, because Texas going out early would be very big for UCF.
You got to take care of your own business. You lose, doesn't matter. If you lose,
you're right. No, you're right. UCF is important first, and that game is going to come first. But I would definitely say that it would not hurt for West Virginia to knock out Texas, so that way to knock out Texas, because essentially Chris Henderson predicted that the Big 12 would be a 3-bid league. BYU and Texas Tech are already basically locks at this point.
Yeah, they're locked.
And so that means that TCU, Texas, and UCF are, I would say, all vying for that last spot.
More than likely, yeah. They're more than likely fighting for one spot, yeah. Here in the Big 12, by the way, only 7th best conference in women's soccer. So kind of interesting. We've talked about all the stronger leagues, but Big 12 is kind of in the similar, and the Americans a little lower, but you're right, not a super powerful league this year. It's kind of been more balanced than expected, but UCF had some injuries. You mentioned Diana Martin, mentioned Chloe Nexel. I think they're going to have to be key factors there. We'll see what happens Monday night, Round Rock, Texas. That's where the Big 12 tournament is held there, Nick. Any quick thoughts on women's soccer before we move on, Nick?
I had them, and you pretty much covered it.
Let's move on to volleyball. We're going to get because
how about that? Well done, guys.
That's the reason UCF TCU playing on volleyball. That's where Bryson was at. That's why he's in his car right now doing the show.
What a win today. They needed that.
Big win. Knights win in 4 sets. They dropped the first set, won the next 3. They won in 4. This was a big match. UCF volleyball was 42 in the RPI coming in. TCU was 49. UCF coming off getting swept by Baylor in Waco. Really got dominated. And this was, to me, a big weekend for both teams, because I think these are 2 teams right on the bubble. TCU is the enigma of the Big 12 because they have wins over Florida State. They almost beat Texas, should have beaten Texas last week, yet they have losses to Cincinnati in West Virginia in the conference, 2 of the worst teams in the league. And TCU came out blitzing them in the first set, but UCF responded, picked up a very important win. Bryson, you were there. What was Jenny Maurer, UCF volleyball head coach, and the players' thoughts afterwards?
I think that they would well, for one, they got back to their diverse offense. Claudia Dillon was telling me that if she was scouting if she was scouting the team, she would not know where to look because the offensive weapons on this team were amazing to behold. Emily Wilson, 15 kills, Lauren Clark, 12. And then their block scheme was much better this time. Baylor, one thing they learned from Baylor, I think, is that and all Big 12 teams really, is they have much higher, like taller middles that they deal with. And so that's something that this team has had to really contend with. And what's interesting is the reason that they might have lost that first set, because Coach Maurer sort of said this in the beginning, is she actually made some lineup adjustments tonight. And I think tonight, Annika Sokol, true freshman, ended up actually getting a lot of action tonight, played in all 4 sets, led the team in digs with 17. That's more than double the amount of digs she's gotten in any previous match before this one. And then they brought in Britt Carlson to play some outside hitter. She ended up actually getting 8 kills tonight, and also got a pair of two block solos and 2 block assists. So I actually think that bringing in Britt was a really cool decision, and I would argue that this is a very big coming out party for the both of them, because while both of them have played in matches before tonight, the fact that this was, I think, their first really, like, their first eye-opening match. These were like, wow, these two played really good volleyball tonight. And bringing in Britt's a tall young woman, so I think she really helped balance out that height, because I think that's the big thing that UCF really needs, and I think Britt really helped in terms of blocking. And UCF, you got to be big in the Big 12. And
what led to those moves?
Really
what led to those moves, and at whose expense?
Not really anybody. I think honestly, because what happened is that they were just switching them out like at different points throughout the set. It wasn't really at anybody's expense per se, because every player in the lineup played in all 4 sets. It's really just a matter of who is on the court
and adding more depth, adding some more bodies.
Exactly. Yes. Annika, don't forget, Annika and Britt were getting some time before this, but this was their, I would argue, like their first, like, really big performance. Like Britt Carlson actually attacked like 22 times, which is definitely more than I've seen her do that. And 17 digs from Annika. I mean, we actually talked to her. We talked to her in post game. So so by the time you're listening to this, that me talking with Claudia Dillon and Annika Sokol after the game will be on the Black and Gold Banneret YouTube channel. Bing. So be sure to go watch that to kind of learn a little bit about Annika Sokol and kind of see her talk in post game presser for the first time. And then of course it helped with that they had that diverse offense again against Baylor. They had, I think it was in that first matchup against Baylor, where Emily Wilson just overwhelmingly had more attacks. She had, I think, 51 attacks. That was the most she's attacked in a game.
Way too much. Yeah. She's not McKenna. Yeah.
This was the UCF offense that I think that this is the identity that they really need to have. In the post McKenna Melville era, this offense is just all over the place. Whether it's Ava Armour, whether it's at Lauren Clark, Claudia Dillon, like everybody. And by the way, you mentioned that about at whose expense Ava Armour actually did not see the court tonight. So I would argue if it was any expense, it probably been her. But it was still a threat. But Britt Carlson is like a is like a new transfer, a really young transfer from Washington State. So it's still a young face that's getting time.
A little more size, maybe a little better defender too. I noticed they held TCU under 200 hitting.
Yes. Oh yeah. Well, they also did not have Melanie Parra, who is actually their kill leader. Now, coach tells me that they were preparing to face her if at all possible, but TCU not having their kill leader and Melanie Parra.
Second week in a row, UCF faced the team without their best player. Baylor was without their best player. It didn't matter. Baylor still won. They were good, but that's significant. Because Friday night is a must-win for TCU. I think their season's on the line there if they want to make the NCAA. So UCF can help their own cause if they were to beat TCU and sweep them. That's a bubble team versus bubble team situation. Nick, did you watch any of the match? I'm curious from a broadcast standpoint.
Unfortunately not. I came from practice, run club practice.
I only asked that because I noticed it was darker on the court, and I even messaged Bryson. Yeah, it was like a darker look. I'm like, Bryson, what's going on here? It's not the broadcast. Apparently it's the court. Explain, Bryson.
So throughout this season, we've Coach Maurer has mentioned this in previous press conference before. The renovations that are currently happening at the venue have been going on all season, and they're happening during team practices even. So over this season, we've really seen the venue evolve into I would argue like a fairly solid, but this might be one of the little bit of growing pains for the venue's new look, because this was the first matchup I've seen them with the new LED light fixtures that are now in the arena, and they showed them on the court, and it was funny actually. So as soon as I mentioned them to Coach Maurer in the press conference, you could see her make a face. There was like, yeah. So that was one. I actually asked the players too, and to quote, I believe it was Claudia Dillon, the team has a love-hate relationship with the lights right now. Actually, it was don't get now. This is the first match that they have them with, so they still need to get used to. So
Wait,
even like the player,
Yeah, I was going to ask that. This is permanent.
yeah,
This isn't going to
these
change.
are part. These are part of the new light fixtures. I think this is new because I believe light fixtures, if I remember right, in the venue in the press release where they talked about the venue renovations, light fixtures was a part of that. And but I honestly, I think it makes a lot of sense that when you think about it, because the look for volleyball, right? They're really adapting the venue into a true volleyball space. And I think part of that is you want to make sure you spotlight the court. Now, I do think that they could probably dim the lights a little bit. I think that's a little bit of a growing pain. Maybe they'll adjust that at some point later. Who knows?
Yeah,
Or maybe
I didn't like
or
them.
maybe this will be the. Maybe the cameras still need to get used to them. Cameras need to get used to them. Players need to get used to them. This is new stuff. This venue has been really evolving this entire season. Whether it's the new Wing of Honor, it's the new black paint all over the place, the new lobby. I mean, this is all like they're all evolving in real time, and so there are just some stuff that people need to get used to, some things that maybe need to adjust a little bit. So we'll see if this changes. There was actually some new animations on the scoreboard now. Whenever a player got a kill, they had their name come up with a kill, and then one for the players. There was a little thing with the players recorded on media day where the players kind of did a celebratory thing for a kill or something like that. So even the scoreboard has now had some new stuff. So I would say it's kind of funny. No one weekend at the venue has honestly been the same for this year, which is really interesting. But we'll see. We'll see if the broadcast can make some adjustments. I think maybe whoever. I think adjustments might still need to be made. This is all new, so hopefully this won't persist. But it's new. Maybe it'll be different later. But from a in-person perspective, I quite liked it. I think it was a really cool environment to have the court spotlighted like that. It really felt like that. It felt like a prime time college volleyball. It felt like a very what's the word? There's a gravitas I think in a way.
I hated it.
You watched it from the broadcast. Come to the match. Come to the match and see it in real life. Because I imagine and who knows? Maybe it'll look different. Maybe it'll look different next time. So it's very interesting.
And that's why I was hoping Nick watched it, because I wanted his opinion. Nick, that's your assignment. Watch the archives. You let me know what you think. You could be.
I'm already looking for 18+ right now.
I hated it. Okay, good. So maybe you could give us a quick thought before we end the show. Couple fast things, because we got to go. We've gone long. Fall ball this weekend. Baseball wraps up against Rollins. Softball is playing Florida Tech, both at the same time. I will start with baseball, because, Bryson, you had a chance to talk to Rich Wallace last weekend during the Black and Gold series. What is the new head coach of UCF, Rich Wallace, had to say to you?
Well, first of all, Rich has been loving it here. He's been I asked him actually what it's been like being a new head coach, because and how different it is from being an assistant. And he says there are a lot of extra responsibilities, but he gets involved at all different levels. It's actually very interesting. He went now. There are obviously a little more areas where he's more experienced with, but he's trying to get involved as much as possible in all aspects of coaching the team. So I think that's really interesting. And I think sometimes you have those coaches that are a lot more hands off. But Rich Wallace has really been like, it seems from what he's told me, he's really trying to talk to all the players as much as he can, which is really admirable on his part. He also told me how the outfield is absolutely wide open. When I was watching the game, I actually looked at the lineup and I noticed that aside from John Rice Plumlee, who's a little busy right now, every single player who was listed as an outfielder on the roster sheet was playing in the fall ball game, and some of them not in outfield positions. Lex Bodeker was playing third base. You had Prevesk from Florida. He was playing first. Even like a freshman outfielder, true freshman outfielder, Andrew Williamson was getting some time out in the outfield. So like this outfield group is really deep. The fact that they're getting him playing time in other positions. Andrew Sundin had a solid performance as well. Mikey Kluxa. There were certainly some players I think that he had an idea. I think of where they're going to start, like Mikey Kluska. Transfer in. He is definitely I think he's got shortstop locked down pretty good. I think. But from what I got from talking with Rich Wallace, I also got a chance actually to speak with Jonathan Batista, new pitcher. It's new pitcher. He both him and Campbell transfer pitcher Wiley Hartley had some good performances as well. So looking at this new team, there's a lot of new faces both on the coaching staff and on the team. But I think that they definitely showcase some potential in fall ball. Muted, Eric.
Muted.
I am muted on purpose because I was doing some stuff there. What do you want to know about softball, Nick?
What do I want to know about softball? Well,
yes.
Well, obviously, every year we get some new people. I'm excited to see how some of the new girls on this team do, because obviously last year was a great season. We're going into I don't know. Actually, Eric, what would you say? Would you say the Big 12 is a lot more competitive league for softball?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You got the defending national champs in Oklahoma.
Right. That's my point. Because I told that to someone. I told that to someone. They're like, how big of a difference could it be? Yeah, very big. Very big.
Huge.
You don't softball if you don't plan that. But obviously, it's a new team. I'm interested to see how they gel. And one thing, yes, it's fall ball, but I'm actually interested to see what the fan support was, because obviously during the regular season last year, we had some good crowds at the stadium. I thought we attract I thought they got a lot of people to come out. I'll be interested to see if this. After the year they had, that people are going to show up to this. Well,
I can tell you, it was sold out in DeLand. People wanted to go see UCF in DeLand, and I'm being told.
Are there a lot of UCF fans there?
Yes, a lot of UCF fans.
All right, so that makes me happy.
I'm expecting over 1,000 people for the Florida fall ball game, November 12th. Keep that date.
Oh, that's going to be packed. That's going to be packed.
Huge game. 9 arms on this staff. Maybe the deepest staff in the history of the pro, but I mean Sonia Halligan, I'll get the name right, of Cal transfer. She's a kid to watch, legit pitcher. 12 seniors on this team. It's a heavy, so it's very interesting, but you got a lot of young talent mixed in. I'm going to go out to see them play Friday against Florida Tech, and then they'll play St. Leo November 4th, and then Florida November 12th. That'll be the home dates to keep in mind, among others. One on November 10th.
I got to go to some of those later home dates, because honestly, I'm just glad to have softball back, man. Those are always
all right, well, let's meet up. Let's hang out. Yeah, we could do that.
100%.
All right. I do have a softball question for you, Eric.
Yeah.
How is Ashley Griffin doing? Because I know she's coming back from an injury.
She had a great weekend last weekend at Stetson in Jacksonville. Is 100% healthy. I think she's excited more than anybody to be back on the field after sitting out last year with the injury. She got hurt in fall ball last year, so I think she's ready to go and had a big weekend last weekend. And I look forward to seeing her this weekend, see what she does Friday and the rest of the fall. I think she's a big part that we forget. They didn't have all of last year, and there was a bit of an adjustment from a catching situation as a result of that. So this is a super stacked team, and wait till the schedule comes out, guys. Woo! It is. Oh, maybe.
I am just very excited to see what the draw is going to be for Oklahoma, because if Oklahoma comes here, whoo, man, you got to bring out the extra seats for that one.
Amen. Please.
That's gonna be fun.
I don't know if they're gonna come here or not, but I would. I gotta wait. We gotta wait for the schedule to find out. But I that's something I'm really anxious to see who we're gonna get at home, because Big 12 is such a big softball conference. Any team that we get to play here at the Plex is gonna be big. But if Oklahoma ends up getting that draw to come over here,
don't forget Texas too. It could be Texas too. By the way,
You gave Oklahoma home in football. Let UCF have home in softball. Come on. That's all.
That is true, Nick. That is true, Nick. That is very true.
Give us this. You owe us this, Big 12. You owe us this.
You heard the guys. They said it. Preach. I know the answer, but I can't give it away. What I can tell you is this has been a fun show. We got a lot coming up. UCF West Virginia, noon kick. We'll have a night shift afterwards. Who's joining me for that? Are you joining me, Bryson? Are you? What's your status?
I am going. Even if I go to the game, I will definitely move heaven and earth to get on the show. You know how much I love doing this, and of course with tomorrow, got women's soccer, got Spirit Splash. So so that'll be fun. Homecoming, man. It's homecoming, people.
Homecoming weekend. Check out Shaq there as well. Lots going on. College basketball gets going November 6th. We'll have an in-depth preview on that. UCF Athletics Hall of Fame is coming up in November 10th weekend. We're going to have a couple interviews coming up in the coming weeks on that as well. Thanks to Kyle Nash. Thanks to Nick Porcelli. Thank you, Bryson, from outside the venue at the parking lot.
Don't forget, we got to come back here tomorrow night for the second
Big
TC
Friday
match.
again. Friday, depending when you listen to this, Rollins, UCF baseball, 5 o'clock at the baseball. Softball hosting Florida Tech at 5. Volleyball hosting TCU at the venue at 7 with those new lights. You got an answer, Nick. You watched the lights. Whose side are you on? Bryson's optimistic. I hate it. Where are you at?
Whatever.
And on that note,
I'll tell you what though. The only time I find it really annoying is, and to be fair, this is the shot they use the most, when they use the full court shot during a play, because at some points there's kind of reflective. It can be hard to see. That was really annoying. That I agree with, but like whenever they're not, it's fine. It's not the worst in the world. It's not like I can still see what's happening, but like if they could maybe.
All right, let's continue. We'll continue this argument off the air.
I don't care. I'm not involved. I'm just giving you what you just asked me.
I asked for another opinion. That's what I did. All right.
Hey, maybe after next broadcast. Maybe if they change it after next broadcast, we'll see what it is. We'll see what it is.
I doubt they will that quick. All right, that'll do it. Check it out, blackeaglebanner.com for all the latest UCF sports, and for your YouTube channel for all the post games and much more. For Bryson, for Nick, for Kyle, I'm Eric. We hope you've enjoyed this edition of Night Shift.